why do I win? Because I want to win bigger battles. And if I lose smaller battles, it will prevent me from winning bigger ones. What I was thinking about is maybe there are other people who were there and witnessed what went on between me and the woman. Would I be able to extend a hand to any of them for friendship? Would I be able to, what would they think of me anytime they see me on the street? Mm-hmm. And this was what I considered. So I want to build bridges, not burn them. Mm-hmm. And in that case, there's a lot required. To whom a lot is given, a lot is required. And I say that I have had the privilege to have a very loving family, a very loving mother, and so I have been lavished in love. And so I have enough to give.
Hey, lovely people, welcome to Africana, the podcast that changes the narrative of Black people and builds bridges. We have arrived at episode number 16, this time with Akua Appiah Lindberg from Ghana, and it's our second episode in English. I've known Akua for, I think, over a decade. I was very young then, and I don't remember that we had many interactions. I was singing in the church choir, and at the time she was, like many others, a part of the congregation and came to the service regularly. But a lot has happened since then, and one thing I can tell you is that I was often speechless in this conversation, and I am totally excited to finally share this episode with you. I know I pretty much always say I'm inspired by my guests, and guess what? That's absolutely the case here again. Listen in for yourself as we talk about her philosophy and outlook on life, how she's able to actually live emotional intelligence, how she perceives it, and what that has to do with her own encounters with racism. And she even shares a solution to the very problem of racism. So just enjoy the episode. Hello, Akua.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So nice to have you, and I'm really glad that we are making it work this time. We've tried I don't know how many times, but honestly, I think this is going to be the last time. What do you think?
Me too.
Let's see. We will do it. I'm so happy you're here, Akua, and that I can talk to you. You have a very fascinating mind, and I cannot wait to share it with the world. Before we start, can you please introduce yourself so that our listeners can get to know you a bit as well?
My name is Akua Appiah Lindberg. I come from Ghana, and I work as a software engineer. And I'm excited to be on Julie's show.
Yay! Yes, me too. You have really had some interesting touch points with Germany before you actually moved here. You grew up in the motherland and you came here as you were a young adult. So first of all, let's start at the beginning. How was it growing up in Ghana and in some of the other countries that you were in? What was life like? What was the surrounding like?
So as early as I could remember, I was born in Kenya, but went back to Ghana at the age of 2 months, so I had no idea about Kenya.
Wow.
But what I could remember the most was America, because that's where I started school. I had my formative years there, and then we moved to Ghana. We were so excited. I think I must have been around 8. I had finished 2nd grade, and I did my 3rd grade in Nigeria. So I think my childhood had a lot of changes, so it makes me also remember a lot of things a lot more than maybe if I had just stayed in one place. But I know that I was very excited to go to Ghana, and I learned Twi within 2 months. So my parents used to speak Twi to us, but we never responded. We responded in English, and within 2 months we were able to pick it up. I was so excited to learn, how would I say, my mother tongue, although I would say maybe English is my mother tongue since it's my first language. But it was exciting to go to Ghana to meet all my mother's sisters, her brothers, my cousins, the extended family, and then spending just 1 year in Nigeria and then coming back and actually settling in Ghana. For me, it was very exciting, and also just the thought. I used to read a lot of stories, British books about going to secondary school. You know, there are a lot of British secondary school books as a young girl. And in Ghana, a lot of young ladies go to secondary school outside of home. They go to boarding schools. So just all this reading about it, how it happened in UK, and just anticipating getting to that age and also going to boarding school. It was just I like change, and I like, maybe it's because of my childhood, but every new place and every new thought and every new season was amazing and was something exciting and to look forward to.
So you saying that the system of education was pretty much adopted from the British in Ghana?
Really.
Okay.
Even the English, a lot of the words, I was not used to, because coming from America, there are certain words that are different. But now sometimes it's hard for me to even tell what is British, what is American. Of course, from the accent, you tell, but like the words and stuff, because it's somehow now all jammed up. But yeah, the Ghanaian education system is really almost the same as the British.
Interesting. And what goes through your mind now when you think of your life in Ghana and also your life in the US? What goes through your mind?
I think that it was a very rich experience as a child, because you learn at a very young age. I think also my parents really helped a lot, because my father would come home with anyone, no matter the nationality, no matter the race, colors, size, like every kind of person was a friend to my dad. And so at a very young age, I learned not like it's them and they are them and we are us. There was no them and there was no us. My father was very Pan-African. He could speak his language. He never spoke English to us, actually, but he also always embraced people from all walks of life.
Wow. And he was also a very educated man, you said, right?
Yes.
He also made you travel a lot. I think he was the reason why you traveled to so many countries, right?
Yes.
What did he do?
He was maybe a long-term learner. So when he was in Ghana, he was a professor and then took a sabbatical. Whilst we were in America, he was on sabbatical leave. He did his PhD there and had a lot of, let's say, projects that also he was invited to come and work on. But he also did not want to stay abroad forever. So he decided to come back to Ghana, and then he got another contract in Nigeria and still came back to Ghana. But he spent a lot of time also in UK, even in Germany, actually. Interestingly, my father started a Ghana-Germany Young People's Association when he spent a few, I don't know if he spent years or months here. That much I don't remember anymore, but I know he spent some time in Germany and in Europe, in UK. He studied also a little bit in UK. Wow. So, yeah.
Well-traveled man.
Yeah.
Do you miss traveling? Especially now with the corona times.
I do a lot. Yeah. Before I had kids, if I just felt like I miss Ghana, I would just book a flight and go.
Oh, that's
But now
great.
it costs a lot with a big family.
Yes.
And after corona, I haven't been.
Yeah, it's super hard right now. I can totally imagine. But it's also really great that you've been able to reconnect with Ghana after you actually settled here. And I wonder if you miss it now that you've been here for such a long time also.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I like traveling, but I never considered myself someone who would settle outside Ghana. So yeah, it's been challenging.
Yeah. What do you miss about Ghana the most?
The people.
Yeah? What about them?
They are warm, friendly, welcoming. Yeah.
Is this something you feel is missing here in Germany?
Definitely. I think maybe if you are German, it's not such a big difference, but that's the biggest problem. So in Ghana, if you look different, it's actually more of an advantage than a disadvantage, because everybody thinks they have to look out for you and help you.
Because you look like you're lost.
Well,
you don't belong there. I don't know, but in a positive way.
I don't know. Everybody knows that you don't belong there. I mean, it might be also annoying if you've lived there for years, but also many people who've lived there for years, you can also tell how they move around, how they interact is different. They know the country, maybe they know the language. Even if they don't know the language, they might know a little bit slang words or something, something will make you realize that they are not lost.
So their behavior changes. They're not acting like tourists, but actually like indigenous people who live there.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So despite their difference in appearance, their behavior is actually what confirms to the people who live there, to the indigenous people, that they're okay. They're part of them, and the rest doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Okay. How would you compare this type of perception to the reverse if we now look to Germany? How do white people do this here with people like us who are black, since we don't look like the majority?
You're always a foreigner. If you come into a place, I think the more uneducated people are, the worse they treat you. But even the educated, it's more about their image than about how you feel. So they don't want to be seen as racist. So maybe they might be kind, or they might show some superficial kind of kindness or acceptance. But still, at the back of the mind, you always can tell that you are like not much is expected of you. For instance, many people have asked me, how could you speak such good English, And I'm like, because I learned it from my childhood, because it's my first language. So there's a lot of ignorance. A lot of Africans know much more about Europe than how much Europeans know about Africa. And this level of ignorance makes them see you in a different light. And also, I think a lot of things that are shown on the television, which I'm generally not against, because if people have to show people how some children are suffering in order to be able to get support for them, who am I to be against it? Because I have privilege. But unfortunately, because of those stories that people see constantly, they think that's the story of every African. And so either you get pity or disrespect.
Okay, so it's more about them and their image. So you're talking about a white person treating you a bit better or kinder if you are more successful or have a better standing because of themselves and their own image. So it would look bad on them if they wouldn't treat you nicely because you're an educated black person. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm talking about their education. So those who are the ones who are not well educated, their minds are like open books. They just behave how they feel like behaving. Okay. But the more educated people calculate their behavior, not based on what they really feel like you deserve, but based on who they are.
The white people.
Exactly. Okay. If they would not want to be seen as racist, so there are some outward things that they would maybe not do, but indirectly you can feel it. Like it's either you are receiving pity, or people don't expect you to know certain things or be able to do certain things, or you get they call something mansplaining. People explain things to you a little bit too much because they think you might not understand it as easily as everybody else.
Yeah, I've heard that as well, the mansplaining. Also, the fact that they make it known as if they know something, and it's not necessarily an attitude of wanting to learn and admitting that they might not know something.
Exactly.
Interesting. So you think that there's a lot of ignorance and there's an imbalance of knowing about the other's culture, and that is not something that you would see in Ghana, for example. Have you experienced that yourself personally, these types of behaviors here?
Oh, a lot of times.
Can you share some of those examples?
Yeah, for instance, I once, in my neighborhood, I got a packet. It was a Friday afternoon, so I wanted to quickly go get the packet and come home. The gentleman at the packet shop, he knew me. I went there several times for packets. And on this occasion, I think he had had a baby, so his mother was there. And I went in, and immediately I entered, she just totally ignored me. So she just started to be so busy that she was never attending to me. And then somebody else came in, she came attended to that person. Another person came in, she came attended to the person. I just stood there very patiently. And finally it was obvious I was the only person to attend to, and she came to me. And then I said I got this yellow thing from DHL to pick up my parcel. And then I had my passport or something, a passport or something to identify myself. And she said, no, she cannot take my passport. She needs an ID card that has also my address on it. And I said, I don't have one. At the time, I still had my visa in my passport, because when I came to Germany, they asked me, I could choose. At that time, you could choose. Nowadays, I think everybody gets a card. But at that time, you could choose whether you wanted a card or you wanted the visa in your passport. And I didn't want the card only because it took longer. So I wanted it immediately. So I didn't want to have to come back or wait for anything. So I just said, put it in my passport. And I didn't know that the card would be of any other benefit. She said no. So I said, I have my passport and my visa is in my passport, but I don't have any ID card that has my face as well as my address. And I mean, you see the name on the packet, it's mine. And the picture is only to show you that I am the person whose name is on the packet. So how could two people have the exact same name? And then I have that face of that person, but I'm not the person. What do you need in addition? My address. And, it could be that it's a rule that they use, but I had taken parcels from there several times. So it also shows you that there is also a bit of a difference in maybe generations. So the younger man didn't really have a problem with me, smiled around with me, hello, how are you, and stuff like that. But the older generation really felt like they had to show me, okay, there is this foreigner who knows nothing, and I have to put her in her in her right position.
Yeah. Oh man, such a pity. My goodness. I mean, I can imagine how you felt then, because I've gone through similar situations like that, and I think many Black people can relate when you have these moments where somebody's obviously ignoring you. Do you ignore these things and you just say, it is what it is? How do you handle that?
I think it always depends. There are many times where you can ignore, you can just say, God bless them. Maybe they had a bad day. But there are days where you flip. And I have to say that this was one of the days where I really flipped. I got really angry. And I was very rude to her. But it was also a very interesting experience. It's an experience I like to share a lot of times, because after I spoke to her the way I spoke to her, I never felt comfortable, because it was not within me to do that. It's not my character. I had made her push me to play on her level. So I never felt comfortable, and I always felt like I should apologize to her. So I actually bought a sorry card, and I wrote in it, I went back there, and I said to myself, if I go and she's alone in the shop, I will go in and say sorry. And I got one opportunity, and she was actually definitely alone in the shop. And I went in and I said, I'm sorry I spoke to you like that, because you're as old as my mom. You could be my mom. And I wouldn't speak to my mom like that. So please forgive me. And I gave her the card. And it was such a beautiful moment, because we both cried. And she also apologized.
Wow. Oh my God. I mean, my mouth has been opened the whole time you were explaining this last action that you took. You're saying that this is not something that would be in you to react based on somebody's negative behavior.
I mean, it would be in me to react, don't get me wrong, and to defend myself. Mm-hmm. But I just felt like maybe I overdid it, or I don't know. I just I was not happy with how I treated her. Mm-hmm. So it's really, if you're not careful, sometimes people can treat you in a way that in trying to defend yourself, you can outdo them. You can outdo them in meanness, if I should put it that way.
So you can become worse than them.
Exactly.
Huh. So you're saying careful in the sense that you need to make sure that you guard your heart? Exactly.
I had a friend, her father always used to tell me, don't let anybody use their bicycle to destroy your Benz, your Mercedes Benz.
Wow, that's beautiful. Basically saying you're at such a high level. Don't let anybody pull you down from there.
Exactly.
It is very profound. And you know what? It makes so much sense. And I'm trying to see or investigate this also from the person's viewpoint, who is a Black person and has gone through all of this severely. Why I'm saying this is I saw this article on LinkedIn from this Black woman who's an educator in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion and all of that. Mm-hmm. And she's done so much work around it, educating white people on what's okay and what's not okay, and being allies and speaking up. And then there was another incident somewhere, I think it was in the US, where there was this white young boy or young adult who went into a shop and killed Black people with his rifle. And she bursted out in anger on LinkedIn, was so sad, and you could feel the pain in her writing. I mean, it touched me so deeply, and I was thinking, wow, because what she was saying is she's trying so hard to always be the bigger person, to always explain, to always be patient, to always listen, to always educate, and then feeling like there's such a setback, as if all of what she's doing is in vain. And I'm trying to see, what would you say to somebody like that? Or, you know, does that resonate with you? Like, how do you find that strength to not burst out like that? Because I believe one of the people that were killed in that was related to her, if it wasn't her grandmother or something like that.
Yeah, my heart goes out to her. I haven't lost a loved one from such an act. Who am I to judge her? But I think that where I draw, and I mean, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, because obviously we are talking about a day where I didn't win. Yeah. And I went back to make things right. Because
in the end, you did win. I mean, honestly, yes, I do think so.
Exactly. But the thing is also, why do I win? Because I want to win bigger battles. And if I lose smaller battles, it will prevent me from winning bigger ones. What I was thinking about is maybe there are other people who were there and witnessed what went on between me and the woman. Would I be able to extend a hand to any of them for friendship? Would I be able to, what would they think of me anytime they see me on the street? And this was what I considered. So I want to build bridges, not burn them. And in that case, there's a lot required. To whom a lot is given, a lot is required. And I say that I have had the privilege to have a very loving family, a very loving mother. And so I have been lavished in love. And so I have enough to give. I don't know where this woman is coming from, what kind of background she's coming from. Many people who look down on others, it's not only from race. It's always people looking for something that they feel is lower than them. And in some people's mind, the Black race is lower than them. There are also people who pick on disabled kids or people who are less financially able as they are. There are always different levels that people go to, but it's always an insecure person who looks for something that is in their mindset lower than them to pick on. What brought this insecurity? Anybody who is lavished in love is not insecure. And so I see it that I am above and I should remain above. Another thing I can say is, I'm always a bit careful not to come too fast into this, but it's part of me that I can never erase, and that's my faith in God. And this also gives me the strength. I believe that that's even what makes me feel convicted if I went below the belt in whatever reaction I took. Yeah, and also, again, apart from my parents and my mother lavishing me with love, I've been lavished with love from above. And so I have enough to also give, even to those who have less to offer.
Wow. Oh, I feel like you're speaking to my soul.
Yeah.
So deep. I am above and I stay above. That's so brilliant. And you know what I love is that you really can tell this is not about seeing yourself above people. It's about seeing yourself at a higher mindset. Mm-hmm. And when you say convicted, like you're convicted in your spirit and in your soul that you're supposed to do something, and then you do it because you receive that notion from above.
Exactly.
Beautiful. If we go back to how it all started, you left Ghana as a young adult, moved to Germany, but that didn't happen in one go. Tell us a bit about how these different visits unfolded until you settled here. Especially because you didn't plan on settling here in the first place.
Yeah, so how I came to Germany. I was working as a geologist in the Geological Survey Department of Ghana. And we had a lot of collaboration with the German Geological Survey. They don't call it that, but it's something similar. So we found out about a course that was done in Berlin in Geographic Information Systems, which was a system we also used a lot in our work. So yeah, a colleague and I, we applied and we came to Berlin for 6 months to do this Weiterbildung, further training. And that was the first time I came to Germany. And it was for 6 months. I did the course and I went back. But this organization was always having yearly annual follow-ups. So to find out what we were doing with what we learned. So we always met in one country. We met once in Addis Ababa, I think once in Ghana actually. And then once we met in Bonn. So when we met in Bonn, they also introduced to us that they were having another course, a master's in public management. And at the time, I just was like, I'm just going to send it to some people who I know who are interested in management, and they would come and do this course. But when I got home, I thought, public management, I'm working for a public organization, and we're the same, although I was a geologist, we're the same people who also managed the organization. So we didn't bring in any managers to manage. The geologists became the managers. So I thought, maybe it's an interesting course to do. And I applied and I came to do my master's. And at the time, my now husband was doing his PhD also in the same department. So we met, and so that's the second one, the second time. Still, I hadn't planned to stay in Germany. I said, well, I'm going back to Ghana, so if you want, you can come with me. So I first went back to Ghana, then I joined him to wait for him to finish his PhD, and then we went together finally to Ghana. And then after some years...
So he followed you back to Ghana,
exactly.
Then you followed him back to Germany, and then you went back to Ghana together.
No, he didn't follow me. The first going back to Ghana, we were not married. So he stayed here. He was also still doing his PhD. I finished my master's. So I went back alone to Ghana, and then I came to Germany, and then we got married and waited for him to finish his PhD. Then we went together. We went back. We lived in Ghana together for 4 years. And now I settled here because he's also an only child. We had 3 children, and the grandparents would also like to spend some time with them. And also he wanted to be a bit closer to his parents as they grew older. So somehow we had no choice. We wanted to settle close to Germany, but other things did not allow us. Brexit and other happenings, global happenings made us end up in Germany.
In Germany, okay. Sounds like education was very important to you and is very important to you as well, just like it was for your father back then, right? And your plan was to bring your education back to Ghana, actually.
Exactly.
But that didn't go as planned, right? Can you tell us how that went instead? So how did you use your education in the end?
I was in Ghana for 4 years, so I did use it for these 4 years. And actually, when we were going to Ghana, let's say maybe my husband hadn't really thought about it. He had never lived outside Germany. He had never been to Africa.
Okay.
And so maybe there was a bit of naivety, right? We didn't really expect that we would ever come back to Germany. But then as you grow older, then you realize, okay, I mean, having grown parents living miles away when you don't have any other sibling, it's not so practical.
What age were you when you moved back to Ghana?
It's not so long ago.
Yeah.
We lived in Ghana from 2013 to 2017. So 2013, how old was I? I don't know, maybe 35, 38. I'm 46 now, so if you do the maths, I'm a little bit dull tonight.
Okay, so that must have been 37. 37,
yeah. 37.
Yeah. Okay. So you really arrived to Germany as an adult, not even a young adult, but like as a grown adult.
I was a grown adult, and that's very challenging that people don't understand.
Yeah. I would love to understand that more because I haven't spoken to somebody who has come to Germany at that mature age. And it's really interesting to see what challenges you come across at that age and if they're much more different. I have a few questions about that, especially because of the industry you're working in.
Yeah.
And I mean, we also know each other a little bit because of the past. Like we used to go to the same church when I was younger. So it's super interesting for me to see your path because many people I know from back then who are in your age now have definitely not gone anywhere close to your level. And there are reasons for that. And I really love for us to also dive into this. But before we get there, I would love to understand also your first years in Germany. They weren't easy. Being here as an adult woman, well educated. Can you tell us a bit about how they were and why they weren't easy for you? Even though you were married to a white German. Yeah.
I think that even makes it more challenging.
Okay.
Because you're married to someone who is oblivious about your challenges. You know, he doesn't go through them. And obviously, if he thought the same as the people who treat you in certain ways, then he wouldn't be married to you. So he's oblivious to all these things and he sees it himself once in a while and is also a bit surprised, but doesn't know how to handle it. But yeah, some of the challenges, the first thing is the cultural shock. So if you live in Ghana and you see that Angela Merkel has been a president in Germany for so many years, the first thing that goes into your mind is women in Germany are very emancipated. And I began to realize that I didn't have so many examples of that.
Of white women or black women?
White women who were emancipated.
Yeah.
Because what I saw was that, I mean, the white women anyway weren't emancipated. And then, I mean, in Germany, there's already the level of you being a foreigner and having all these obstacles to go through before you would be even considered for anything. And if the people who are not foreigners, because of their gender, are also given a limit, then how much more you as a foreigner with the same gender, where would you think you would stand? So that was the first thing. The second thing was like, for me, I kept wondering, how can it be that Angela Merkel is the chancellor? But I mean, politically, what she does is what most presidents in other countries do.
Right.
And the presidents are almost like they are just there for ceremonies. Right. Once a year, they come and say something and that's it.
True.
So, yeah. But anyway, it's like, it was difficult to really marry the two. And even today, when I came from Germany and we went to Ghana, we lived there for 4 years together. many people, if I would say about how it is in Germany, they didn't believe me, but they said, isn't that the country with Angela Merkel? You know? So the outside world saw Germany totally different from what it is really from within. When it comes to emancipation of women, there are so few women who ever work again. Very few ever work again after they get married. Others never work again after they have children. And others never are able to come back to the working world, even if they want to, you know, after they have children. Or maybe they have a pause within a period and go back. And from where I am coming from, many of the very successful business people are women.
In Ghana.
Yeah, the word housewife is very rare. There are very few people, maybe very rich. But even if they are very rich, their wives would want to have some kind of a business of their own. So financial 100% dependence on a man, it's very rare in Ghana, at least. Seeing the level of financial dependence. And also I met so many brilliant people who did nothing but maybe took care of one child. And that's it. You know?
Yeah, which is not often the case in Ghana or Africa in general.
I was a bit surprised. I was like, all this talent and you have a baby and then that's all of it? I mean, I struggled already as a child with my mother being a housewife. Because I thought she was such a brilliant woman. Everything I asked her, she had an answer. And she was so well read. She read so much. Was always reading, actually. My mother was always reading. And I couldn't put my hands together. Why? I mean, I was happy that she was always at home. But I still, something in my heart yearned for more for her. And that was already on my mother's level. But my mother, it's also because we moved around so many times. It was hard for her to keep. She was also in the health industry. So it was hard for her to keep in it. And then also, if you're abroad with 4 children, it's hard to keep in the work world or whatever. Yeah. But then I was shocked that I saw, okay, this is very common. I would say that was my biggest challenge. And so if they were satisfied and there was no fight for women to be in workplaces, where was my space? Where was my place? You know?
Even less possible to imagine, right? If you don't see women, not even speaking about Black women, but that's what we're talking about right now, how representation actually matters, because it inspires you to go places you didn't think you were capable of, but you did still go places. So how come?
I think the main thing was that being an older person coming here was both an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that I had a totally different view on life. And the view here, it saddened me, but it didn't change me. So I still kept my old view. And I was like, I'm not going to be part of this. I'm not going to sit at home and take care of children. And after I'm 50 or 55, then I want to have a life. Or maybe after 65, then I want to have a life. And then, I mean, I'm 100% dependent on somebody else, the financial decisions someone else is going to make. If I want to travel the world or whatever, like I have no chance, you know. And then my kids are gone. They are enjoying their life. And I was like, no, that's not going to be my portion. So I really have to. And somehow also having less time also pushed me even more. Like I don't have enough time. Very soon, it will be time for me to close my books and go home. So I need to get it happening before that time comes.
Go home, meaning?
Retire.
Okay.
You know, I don't have so many years left.
Oh, well, you're still very young. Very young.
Yeah.
So you did keep your mindset and your mindset of that emancipated woman and decided to become a software engineer. By the way, I celebrate you wholeheartedly for that. Like,
thank you.
Really, this is an area where women in Germany are so underrepresented, let alone Black women. You're actually a rare gem. I've worked in recruiting and I can tell you how much I have looked for female engineers in vain. And there actually was one person that we did hire, but we hired her directly from Nigeria because there was nobody here in Germany. So that's really interesting. When did you decide to become a software engineer, and what made you take that decision?
So first I decided to use what I already had. So the same course that I did here in 2005 in Berlin, I decided to do it in German because the first course I did it in English. I decided to do it in German. Also, this was 2018. It was 13 years later. New technologies had come and all that. And so I did, I think, about 4 months Weiterbildung. And I thought, okay, if only I had a German qualification, if only I could show that I could do these things also in German. And I did quite well in this Weiterbildung. But still, I would get no responses for my applications. And then I was like, okay, now I have to find something where I have to throw away whatever I have on my CV and just say I'm coming as a Quereinsteiger, which, for those who don't understand German, like just learning on the job. You know, you don't have come with any experience. You're going to learn on the job. And so
I'm a big fan of that, by the way.
Yeah?
I also was a Quereinsteiger, and it's one of the greatest things one can do. I'm a big advocate for Quereinsteiger, so yes, please go ahead.
Wonderful. Anyway, yeah, so I just decided, I was looking all the time, which jobs are there a lot of Quereinsteiger? And then I saw a lot, once I saw this advertisement for a job where they said, we don't care what's on your CV. I was like, then that's for me. And then I did a test. I passed. The first one was an IQ test or something like that. And then the second one was an EQ test, your emotional intelligence. And then they did that test and I passed both tests. Then they gave me a first interview. I passed this first interview. Then the second interview I went in personally, and they were going to take us, put us into training, and right after the training you had the job already. So I was so excited. And then after the personal interview, they gave me feedback that I didn't show enough enthusiasm, or I didn't show enough excitement, or I've forgotten the word they used, but excited enough about the position. Like, what did you need me to do to show excitement? I mean, people show excitement differently. What was I supposed to do in order to show excitement?
Did they provide any feedback on that?
No. I was so broken because I was always like, all these jobs where I would put in my CV with my picture on it, of course I was easily thrown away. But this was an opportunity where I came in through what I can do, these general intelligence level questions, and I passed right in, and I was almost there. That was the last stage of the interview.
And then you came in person. So before that, they didn't see you?
No.
Okay.
So there, everything started to dawn on me. Okay, it is about who I am. This I can't change. I mean, at that time, to be honest, since my whole childhood, I never even, the word depression, I thought it happened to certain people who had problems, you know. I never thought like I could ever describe myself of having a depression, but I knew that I had no desire to get out of bed in the morning. I just stayed in my room. I just thought, what am I doing with my life? Like, what can I do now? You know? I didn't see any way forward, any way backward. Everything was just, I was like, I had put so much effort. When I had 3 children, I would wake up very early in the morning, make sure that, I think our lesson started at 8:30 when I was doing the 4 months Ausbildung. I would wake up early in the morning, make sure everybody was in their school or in their kindergarten. And even in the kindergarten, you have to bring them in, take off their shoes, you know, hand them over to someone. I went through all this. By 8:30, I was sitting at my desk for 4 months, and still application upon application. Then finally, this one was sort of like, I was just so excited. And then when it also did not work, I was like, what can I do in this country? It was really a very tough time. But interestingly, because of that thing, it was a boot camp. So because the word boot camp showed up on my computer several times,
the
ads started coming. They're not so bad after all.
Yeah.
And I hardly went on Facebook because I had no time. You know, I was a mother trying to help my kids out and at the same time trying to make myself away in the work world. So one day I just went on Facebook and yeah, this boot camp had faced up, Iron Hack. And then I was like, yeah, I should try that. But of course I was trying my best that everything I did was in Hamburg because that's where my family lived. So I found another boot camp in Hamburg. I went there. The lady sized me up. Oh, you're quite slow in typing. Did you do this yourself? You know, it was really interesting. And then I had this one in Berlin, which was going to be done in English. And they asked me to come with C1 German. And I've said, no, I'm not going to do C1 German. I've done enough German. If I'm going to make a way, I have to keep moving towards a job because I'm not going to work as a German teacher. I'm working in something. I have to move towards a job. Mm-hmm. And so I saw this Iron Hack and I saw that they were in Berlin. I went there and they took me in almost exactly opposite to what the lady in Hamburg, how she behaved was the exact opposite. And I got the place and I went to Berlin for 9 weeks to do the boot camp. And at least that's where I started to have at least a certificate that I could show. But I was so bent on that. The one that I really lost, the sad part about it was it came with a job. But this one, I finished the whole thing and now I had to go through looking for jobs, which was another whole challenge. Story.
Yeah.
But at least I had something, another certificate in my hand.
Yeah, because that's important here, right? Like, exactly. Even though you were and are intelligent, that wasn't enough for the criteria and the processes here. Yeah. And how has your self-perception changed after that triumph? Because you were in that depressive mode and probably were questioning yourself and your abilities after all, but then you made it.
Yeah. I mean, to some extent, I wonder, like, if I made it or you know, the thing is, it's really hard to stay in a system where you're almost unwelcome to the table, you know. So the women are not in this industry because they don't have the brains or they can't. There are a couple of women graduating as software engineers. What happens to them? Maybe society tells them after you have a child, you should not go back to work. So some of them fall along the way that way. But if they do want to come back to work, how do their colleagues take them? What kind of workload is expected from them? This is a fast-paced industry where you're learning something new every day. And I mean, the young men, maybe some of them live still with their parents, have no responsibilities. They can be learning the whole day, whole night. Their food is learning new stuff. And you're going to compete with the same level of people whilst you have children to take care of. You know, you have days where you're just totally tired emotionally or physically.
Yeah, because you have to take care of so many humans around you.
Exactly. It makes it very unattractive for women, even if you've made it to qualify as a software engineer. Staying in the game is not easy.
Staying in the game is not easy. Yeah.
So we have to ask whether I made it in 3 years. If I'm still in the game, then I made it.
Well, but there are different factors, right? Because you just said it. It's the willingness might be there, the level of knowledge might be there, the intelligence might be there, the resilience definitely is there if you've raised children. But then the question is, how is this person received? Like, these are also factors, and these are factors that are outside of your control after all. So making it, unfortunately, doesn't only depend on you then in this regard, especially in this industry. So what would you maybe tell also another mature woman in your age, for instance, who maybe is considering to go into that route or wants to like challenge herself to, doesn't have to be software engineering, maybe another STEM area where women are underrepresented, especially Black women are underrepresented. Like, what would you advise her to do considering the barriers that still exist there?
I would say she should always it's good to look for mentors. And your mentors don't always have to look like you. My greatest mentor is a white man, white American man, and he was amazing. He made me believe so much in myself, and he believed also so much in me.
Oh, can I say that I share that sentiment because I do have a white American mentor as well, who also changed my life, and I would consider one of, like, literally my greatest mentor as well. So, yeah. Isn't that amazing?
It is.
Especially considering the fact that you've experienced this racism from white people, and at the same time finding somebody or being connected to somebody who looks like the people that hurt Black people when it comes to racism, and then considering them as your greatest mentor to succeed in life after all. I mean, think about that for a minute, right? Like, even the people listening to us, like, think about that for a minute. Isn't that the most paradox thing ever?
Yeah, and that's why we always have to build bridges and not burn them. Because I know there are a lot of people who I watched a movie, I've forgotten the title, but some years ago, and it was like the girl had a white boyfriend. She was a Black girl with a white boyfriend, and she brought him to a family event, and they were like, "You're sleeping with the enemy." And I mean, such kind of names, you should take it out of your mind. You know, people are people.
Yeah.
If you want to succeed, it's nice to have representation, and I am really a strong advocate for representation. But if you're looking for someone to lift you up, the person doesn't have to look like you, because most of the time the people who look like you have not got to the point where they can pull you up. They are also struggling up the ladder themselves. But it's those who don't look like us who are already on the top and can pull us up. And
so true.
Yeah, we have to keep our minds open and our hearts also open.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Beautifully said. That's an amazing advice for that mature woman who's looking for advice. I'm sure. So look for a mentor and keep your heart and mind open, because that mentor might not look like what you might desire them to look like.
Another thing I would say is you have to build a little bit of a tough skin. It won't be easy in the beginning. Maybe you have to just put it in your mind that in the beginning you just want to learn as much as you can. And then afterwards you can be quite choosy in the environments you work in.
Yes, I love that. So take your time to actually prepare.
And the most difficult part of the work is not the work itself, which is also quite challenging. But the most difficult part will be the people you work with. So be prepared for that.
Elaborate a bit on that, like why would that be the case?
You know, the interesting thing is that I was also in STEM when I was in Ghana. I was the only lady in my class, a class of 37 students, when I did geological engineering at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Kumasi. So it's not the first time I'm experiencing being the only woman, but it was a totally different experience in Ghana. Sometimes they made jokes that I didn't find so funny, but all you needed to do is maybe look at them in a certain way.
Give them the side eye.
Exactly. Or say something. And then they would immediately apologize or come back to book, or, you know, I say that the level of emotional intelligence is very high, generally in Africa and also in Ghana. If you have someone who just deliberately hurts you over and over again, it's rare, They do it if they don't know, but they are quick to notice, okay, this didn't go well with our only lady. Let's be careful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still on a WhatsApp group with these guys. And when the war started between Ukraine and Russia, there were a lot of passionate exchanges, those who are for Russia, those who are against Russia. And I made a certain statement, and one guy said, "You're just being emotional. You should learn about world politics and stop being emotional." And I just left the platform. And then several people came begging me. By the time I was aware, the guy who said that statement, he wrote me a personal message. "I'm so sorry. Is it because of me you've left the platform? Come back. I'm sorry." And from that day on, if anything happens, we can also joke about things, like everything is not uptight. So when something happens, he's like, "Hey, I better be quiet before Akua jumps on me," And it's like an open joke, but he means it. He's not going to go below the belt again. And this I find very beautiful, but you can't expect to experience the same here. They might slap you on both cheeks and they are unaware of it. And sometimes even if you try to draw their attention to it, they will still say that there was nothing wrong with what they did.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to have empathy and people feel with you, it's hard. That's why I say you learn first a lot. In the beginning, you might not have much of a choice, because if people don't have emotional intelligence, it can't be learned. You can learn all the languages, JavaScript, Postgres, what. But you can't learn emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is when you can have empathy with someone else, even though you've never been in their shoes. So how must it feel as a grown woman of 46, having to start life all over again? And it's not because she did something wrong. It's because she just had to relocate. And it's not because she just chose to relocate, but because, her family conditions made it necessary. And how would I treat her if she was my mom? Because some of them are old and young enough to be my sons. Or how would I treat her if she was my big sister? This kind of emotional intelligence, which you can find very easily in Africa, it's not so common here.
So would you say that the antidote to racism is emotional intelligence?
I think so, absolutely. Because there are so many isms. It's not only racism. There's sexism, there's chauvinism, feminism, blah, blah, blah-ism. I mean, these days there's even ageism. If you have empathy, you always put yourself in the other person's shoes, although you've never been there, and wonder, how would I feel if I were them? You try to picture it. How would it feel? What would it feel like to be in their shoes?
I love what you're saying. You know what this makes me think of? Because I've wondered so many times why we need all these labels, first of all. And I'm not saying for what exists already, but something like racism, for example, right? But let's talk about feminism, for example, which is a movement that has been created in order to provide more attention and rights and all of that good stuff to women that they haven't received beforehand, but that they would have probably received if there was or there had been that level of emotional intelligence that you were talking about. So these movements really are symptoms of something that is missing, which is that emotional intelligence, because it wouldn't have to matter if you're a woman or not, if you have a certain gender or not, if you are disabled or not, if you would receive the level of emotional intelligence that you deserve based on your condition and your person. Because then you wouldn't fight to get the attention that you seem to be lacking because of that missing emotional intelligence, right? This is so profound. And to be honest with you, I feel like this is not being spoken about at all.
Yeah.
It seems like we are always stopping at that surface level of the symptoms, like discussing about the isms and does it exist? Does it not exist? What is it? Who is it? Just that level. We don't go deeper to really understand, okay, what is really going on? What does this person or these groups of people, what do they really need? Do they really need, I don't know, to be labeled a certain way? Do they really need to, I don't know, to be addressed with a she or with a he, or, what is it really that they need?
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. The world would be a totally different place if there would be a little bit more emotional intelligence. Actually, as we were speaking, I was just thinking, we should teach emotional intelligence to kids from kindergarten. I'm sure people would say they are doing it in some ways.
Yeah.
I think more of it could not harm.
Yeah, right. Because it's, again, maybe that surface level still. I mean, there have been books written about emotional intelligence. Who was it? Daniel Goldman or Goldman? I'm not 100% sure if I'm saying the name right. But he had this incredible bestseller about emotional intelligence that came out everywhere and was sold out and, around the world. And you still have that problem everywhere around the world. Imagine a white German who desires to learn, to do better, and to address that legacy of racism that still exists in their unconsciousness somehow. How would you advise this person to start this journey of reprogramming their subconscious?
I would say they should learn. They should learn and be allies for the diversity, equity, and inclusion, whatever diversity, equity, and inclusion program there is in their workplace or wherever. Because I've always been saying people need to hear it from people who look like them. Whenever you see all these things on LinkedIn, when a Black person comes and says things about, they did this to me, you will see the backlash of the answers that come afterwards. It's because you didn't do this, or it's because you weren't good enough, or Yes. And how would the backlash be if it was from a white man? So we need more white men to stand up for us. That's the only way it's going to work. That's why I'm not a feminist, and I never will be one, although I'm really pro-women, because there is no gain for any woman without a man welcoming them on the table, because they have filled the table. So if they don't give us a place on the table, if we set another table altogether, we still are not part of the decision making. We have to be on that table, and only those who are already on the table can invite us onto the table. So it's only males who can invite us women to join the table. It's only white people who can invite us Black people to join the table. So we need the privileged to fight the battle for us. We can't fight it alone, and making them our enemies will make us forever lose.
Oh my God, Akua. I feel like shouting. It's like you're preaching to me. I love what you're saying. It's just beautiful. It's so beautiful. You've explained it so beautifully. What is somehow obvious, but our egos get in the way of this fact that we need to build bridges and we need to hold each other's hands. We need to do it together instead of everybody now building their own little towers, or because at the end of the day, we still depend on each other. And maybe for those seats at the table, we depend on the men, or we depend on white people as Black people. But then there are other situations where white people depend on us Black people, and men depend on us women. So there's always going to be that codependency.
Exactly. Interdependency.
Yes. Interdependency. That's the right word. Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Akua, I could go on forever to talk to you.
I know. And
extract your wisdom. It's just amazingly profound.
We can do part 2.
Yes, we do. And ideally in person. Oh my God, this has been so enriching. I cannot tell you how blessed I am to listen to you, to exchange with you. It's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. It was my pleasure.
I need to finish, however, as well by asking you my lightning questions.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go there. To question or to think?
To think.
Round or square?
Round.
Mixed or pure?
Mixed.
Hot or cold?
Hot.
Emotional or rational?
Emotional.
African or German?
African.
I love how precise and clear you were with every single question. It's like you didn't have to think. It's like, I know this. But it just shows, it just confirms that, I don't know, I perceive you as this person who's very, very in tune with herself, very present and conscious.
Oh, thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
It's so nice to hear. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Welcome, magic and wonder.
The view of life here in Germany hasn't changed Akua. She kept her own view, the view of an emancipated woman with the familiarity of being successful from her life in Ghana, a woman lavished in love. She became a software engineer in Germany by deciding to use what she already had, the qualifications she had acquired while in Ghana, as well as the mindset she had of not giving up, of resilience, patience, diligence. I actually recently posted something about this in my personal account. The fact that we have so much in our own hands but keep overlooking it in our search for something out there that's greater, that grass that must be greener, or the opportunities that might be bigger. But Akua believes it's in her, and I believe that for all of us too. By the way, the word Quereinsteiger in English is lateral entrance, meaning someone who changed careers and has not gained experience in the new job they're undertaking, but they're learning on the job, learning by doing. Also, women are many of the successful business people Akua knows from Ghana. And I wonder how her perception actually changes the way we believe ours to be. Do we question whether what we believe is the norm in a good way? I'm so grateful for the level of love Akua feels for humanity, for people, for herself, despite the experiences that she's made. And I think it's so exemplary for all of us. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to sharing the next episode with you next week. And please leave a thumbs up or a good review if you like this episode. Keep in mind the next episode will be in German again, but I appreciate you listening, even if English is your first language. Until next time on Africana.